Hello everyone! My name is Jenna, but you guys can call me Jen, and welcome back to my channel. Welcome to a little bit of a different video. I was planning on doing a Wintery Recommendations video, and then I also wanted to do like a holiday book recommendations video, and then I wanted to do a holiday TBR video, then just decided to put them all together. So this is my books that feel wintry and my holiday reads video. It includes books that I recommend, and it includes books that I am going to be reading this holiday season. So I have books for everybody, even if you don't celebrate Christmas, because I do have Christmas-centered books that I will talk about later in this video, but half of them are books that are wintry, cold, feel like you're just kind of sitting in a wintry time. Grab yourselves a cup of something warm, sit back, relax, because we're just gonna get into it today. Alright, so let's just dive right into the books that make me feel wintry. So we have a pile of middle grade, we have some fantasy, some YA fantasy, and one contemporary. So we're just gonna start with the one contemporary, and that is What Are Friends For by my lovely friend Sarah Sutton. I was looking at my bookshelves for way too long trying to remember which books I've read that feel like winter, because everything that I read usually feels like fall to me, especially my fantasies. But then I remembered this bad boy right here, because it is set over the wintry times. Our main character, Remy, spends the majority of this book making snowflakes. Every single one of the chapter headings in this one have a little snowflake on it. So it is colder, it's set during the wintry times, but it's not focused on like Christmas and winter stuff like that. It has a very cute romance to it, so it's a friends to lovers romance. It's about Remy, who one day is at a party, and at this party they're playing a game that is very close to 7 Minutes in Heaven. I can't remember the exact name of it in this. She ends up going into the closet or a room with who she presumes is the guy she's had a crush on for a long time. She kisses this guy, and it is the best kiss she has ever had, like swoon worthy. But then something happens and her blindfold falls off, and it's not that guy. It is her best friend Elijah. But yes, this is definitely wintry, and you can definitely read it in like one sitting with like a big blanket wrapped around you and a cup of cocoa. It's just so good. Now let's move on to our lovely YA fantasy. First one I have here is actually We Hunt the Flame by Hafsa Faisal. So this I picked specifically because the beginning part of this book, where our characters live, is icy, cold, barren. There's a forest that like makes people lose their minds. It is so wintry and desolate. Zafira is the hunter who is one of the only people who can pass into this forest and be able to navigate it and hunt for her village and bring them food. Yes, most of this book is set where she goes to this island on a mission with a bunch of other people. Doing a terrible job of explaining this book, and that island is like hot and deserty, but there's just something about the vibe of this book that feels very wintry to me. So it has Zafira, who is the hunter. As I said, she disguises herself as a man when she braves the cursed forest of the Ars to feed her people. Nasir is the Prince of Death, assassinating those foolish enough to defy his autocratic father, the Sultan. If Zafira is exposed as a girl, all of her achievements will be rejected. If Nasir displays his compassion, his father will punish him in the most brutal of ways. Both Zafira and Nasir are legends in the kingdom of Arawiya, but neither wants to be. They go on a quest to uncover a lost artifact that can restore magic to Zafira's suffering world and to stop the Ars, which is the forest, because it is encroaching on their land and threatening to swallow everything. The next one is the second in a series. So you'll remember me talking about this series a fair amount on my channel. I really love it. I've only read the first two, so I have yet to read the third and the fourth, but I'm very excited to. And that series is the Stalking Jack the Ripper series, but the second book is the wintry one. This one continues that story. So we have Audrey, Rose, and Thomas, who go to a school that is in Romania manor of Dracula, and it is so wintry and cold because when they go they get like blizzards and they're following footprints in the snow, and there's icy cold. They have to wrap themselves in cloaks And the mystery is so good in this one. I really, really enjoyed this. And it deals with like vampires and it brings a little bit of like fantastical elements to it, even though it is still just a mystery novel, not actually fantastical. But yes, this definitely gives me the wintry vibes. So the first one gave me fall vibes, this one gives me wintry vibes, and I have a feeling the next two are gonna be summery vibes. I don't know why. It gives me that feeling, but definitely pick this one up. The next one here on this list is a kind of a more gentle fantasy book, I will call it. I believe in my mind it is like a retelling of Cinderella. It has those vibes of like a girl who's part of a big family and her father remarries and brings in the stepmother, and the stepmother just causes havoc in the world. It's one of those stories, and that is The Bear and the Nightingale by Catherine Arden. This is such a lovely, ice-cold fairy tale. This one is gentle and it's set in the throes of Russia, and it's cold and icy, and it just has that feeling to it when you read it that you are cold. So it makes you want to like wrap in a blanket. It is so, so good. So it is about Vasya, who, as I said, her siblings and her are living their lives. When Vasya was born, her mother died through that process. So she's been motherless for a while. In this world, Vasya and her siblings are raised on the stories of these spirits of the world they're in, the spirits of the hearth, the spirits of the forest, that kind of thing. And they appease the spirits by like honoring them and giving them gifts, offerings. One day when Vasya's father remarries, he brings in this woman who is incredibly Christian, and she sees demons everywhere. So she has the ability to actually see these spirits that are around, just like Vasya, but she thinks they're demons. So she tries to cast them out and like basically change this entire town's religion to Christianity like her, and that sets off this really dangerous chain of events. I have yet to read the rest of these, but this is definitely a wintry tale. Now, the next few that I'm going to talk about, the next like 3, 4 that I'm going to talk about aren't quite wintry per se, but there's something about diving into a new fantasy world that just has a wintry feeling to it, for me at least. The first one is Aragon that I'm going to talk about, by Christopher Paolini. I've only read the first 2 in this series, but there's just something about this series that makes me want to sit by the fire, sit by a Christmas tree with a big blanket around me and my cozy reading socks and just devour this series. It is so lovely and filled with like elves and gnomes and all the classic fantasy elements. It follows this boy named Aragon. One day he finds a blue stone in the forest upon his adventures, and it ends up hatching into a beautiful dragon named Zephyra. It's so fun to be in a world like this where it's like you have the classical elements of fantasy and you have the adventure story. It's just, I love it so much. And that brings us into the adult fantasy books. I have 2 of them, technically 4. But the first one is, of course, the entire bind-up of Lord of the Rings. I couldn't pick just one Tolkien book, so I picked the entire Lord of the Rings trilogy. I love this series so much, and again, just like Aragon, there's something so lovely about starting a brand new series around this time of year, especially one as expansive as this. I love this series so, so much, and all the things stand, as I said. Starting a new fantasy world, diving into one as beautifully rich as this one is just incredible, and everyone should read this series. And if you find it a little hard to get through, because I know Tolkien's prose is a little bit dense, definitely try out the audiobook, because it feels like the Rob Inglis one, at least, feels like you're sitting beside your grandfather's knee being read a story, and it's just so lovely and comforting. I think that's what the main thing is here with all these fantasy books. It's lovely and comforting. And the last one I'm going to talk about for the fantasy is the Queens of Renthia trilogy by Sarah Beth Durst. This trilogy I don't see talked about enough on BookTube. It is so good. It is one of my favorite trilogies. There's just something about it, and each of the books really does kind of have its own story on its own, even though it does follow the storyline and you do need to read them in order. But they do quite well on their own, so like this could be standalone, but there is still more to the series, and it is so good. So it's such a deliciously unique fantasy world. It's a world where people live in the trees, and they live alongside these nature spirits that their natural tendency is to kill and destroy, but also to rebuild and reshape without the queen, who has like a massive control over these spirits because she's got a power where she can control these spirits and keep them in line within her kingdom boundaries. They would rip all the humans to shreds. All these people live in this balance. And at the beginning of this, we have a young girl named Delena, and she basically saves her family from an attack from these spirits because she has a little bit of this magic. So she goes to a school to train herself up because this world needs a lot of these queenly figures, or at least people who can be queens, in reserve. Because if the queen dies, the whole kingdom, all of the spirits go into a freeze, a standstill for about 3 days until a new queen is picked. So then she can control the power over them again. And so Delena goes to school to train up. So it has a school aspect, a magical school aspect. It has that incredible stakes aspect, and there's just so much more going on in the series. I love it. This is another really good one. If you decided to dive into a fantasy series this Christmas or this holiday season, this winter, I highly recommend that one. Now we're gonna dive into middle grades. So this first one, I kind of debated with myself a bit. I was like, I can't remember if this gives me wintry vibes or not, but I think it's, again, just with the comfort vibes of these fantasies, this one delivers that. And that is Nevermore by Jessica Townsend. This is the Morgan Crow series about Morgan Crow, who has been cursed to die on her 11th birthday. As she awaits her fate, she lives in this town where everything that goes wrong is blamed on her because she's been deemed as cursed. But on her 11th birthday, as she expects her demise to come around, this man named Jupiter North comes and takes her away to this other world called Nevermore. And Morgan discovers that she must contend for a place in the city's most prestigious organization, the Wondrous Society. So this book specifically has trials in it, like magical trials that she must go through, where she meets new people and she lives in a hotel with a giant cat. It's super fun, and I think would be a great one to read around this time of year. So the next one is actually one that does branch into the Christmassy vibes a little bit more. I think it's set over Christmas, but this is such a beautiful, beautiful book, and I love it so much. It is Winter House by Ben Utterson. This is a story about Elizabeth, who is an orphan girl who lives with her aunt and uncle, and they mysteriously get a trip offered to them, so they send her off to this hotel, Winter House Hotel, where someone has graciously paid her stay. And so she goes there, and that's where she spends her holidays. And she meets all these people, like the hotel's owner. She meets her little friend. I can't remember his name. I think it's Freddie. It is so lovely, and she and him like uncover a mystery, and there's beautiful illustrations throughout, but it's lovely, and it's set in a wintry, cold, over Christmas holiday type of style, and it's just lovely. So definitely pick this one up if you're at all interested. Those are all the books that are wintry vibed, in my opinion. So the next books I'm going to talk about are specifically Christmas books. I have 2 middle grades, 1 YA, and 3 adult romances, and then I'm going to talk about my Christmassy TBR for myself this holiday season. So without further ado, let's just dive into these. The very first one is A Boy Called Christmas by Matt Haig. I absolutely adore this book. I read most of these Christmassy books, actually no, all of them. As part of my December TBR last year, I was determined to read as many Christmassy books as I could, and I loved it so much. I had a great time. But this one is the story of Santa Claus as a boy and how he became Saint Nick. And it is just so lovely. And it again has a few illustrations in it as you go around, and it's just incredible. Matt Haig, his writing is just beautiful. It is so, so good, and you can read it in no time at all because it is a middle grade and it is very, very tiny. Next one is also middle grade. I would argue that this is a younger middle grade, so like for, I want to say like 7-8-year-olds, so maybe a young reader's book, but it is still really fun and really Christmassy, and that is The Christmasaurus by Tom Fletcher, and it is illustrated by Shane DeVries. So again, we have a really fun storyline where we have a young boy named William, and all he wants for Christmas is a dinosaur friend. And so he gets one. A dinosaur ends up coming to him, and it's like a little Christmas Day or Christmas Eve adventure. It's just so cute and so much fun. All right, so let's dive into that YA one. This is probably the biggest surprise that I read last year. I had heard a lot about it and I was a little bit iffy because I'm always iffy with classical book retellings. But this one really succeeded, and that is The Afterlife of Holly Chase by Cynthia Hand. This is a retelling of A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens, which is one of my favorite classics, and I try to read it every year. This specific book, though, was such a surprise. So we deal with Holly, who on Christmas Eve 5 years ago was visited by 3 ghosts who showed her how selfish and spoiled she'd become. They tried to convince her to mend her ways, but she didn't. So she died a few days later. Now she's stuck working for the top secret company Project Scrooge as the latest ghost of Christmas past. So far, Holly's afterlife has been miserable, but this year's Scrooge is about to change everything. So it's great. The next 3 are all kind of romances, so I'm gonna start with this one because it feels like a Hallmark movie, but not as like sickly sweet as a Hallmark movie can be. So this is The White Christmas Inn by Colleen Wright. I remember picking this up from a store just because of the cover. I was like, wow, Christmas, that's what I want. I want to read Christmas books. I don't even care what this is about. It is about a inn of people who all get snowed in. It is a New England inn, which seems like the picture-perfect place to spend the holidays, but when a snowstorm shuts the roads and keeps the guests inside, they find themselves worrying that this Christmas may not be exactly what they dreamed. So we have an author there who is just trying to finish her latest book, but has crippling writer's block. There's a man named Marcus with his 2 young daughters who comes in. Hannah, who has planned her wedding at this inn. Her childhood friend Luke is there. Jeanne and Tim. Like, it's this whole cast of characters all snowed in at this inn, and it is so lovely. There's descriptions of Christmas food in here that make your entire mouth just salivate. It is so delicious. And again, like a few of the other ones, you can read it in a really fast time because it is very small. It is like a little slice of Christmas. And then we have 2 romances. One of them kind of branches a little bit more into literary fiction because it did make me sob. And the other one is a little bit more fun. So that one specifically is We Met in December by Rosie Curtis. So this one, it's like New Girl meets Christmas, basically, the show New Girl. And it goes over a year. These 2 people meet in December. So 29-year-old Jess is following her dream and moving to London. It's December and she's taking a room in a crumbling but grand Notting Hill house share with 4 virtual strangers. On her first night, Jess meets Alex, the guy sharing her floor at a Christmas dinner hosted by her landlord. They don't kiss, but as far as Jess is concerned, the connection is clear. She starts planning how they will knock down the wall between them to spend more time together. But when she returns from a 2-week holiday, she catches this guy kissing another one of their roommates, and her plans kind of derail, and it's the year following that. It's a lot of fun, and it does have a good Christmas vibe to it. It is a romance that you could probably read at any time of year, but it does have a nice Christmas vibe. And then the last one I'm going to recommend you guys today before I get into my own TBR is One Day in December by Josie Silver. This book is so good. Like We Met in December, it is over a period of time type of book, except this one is a 10-year span between these 2 people. Lori is pretty sure love at first sight doesn't exist anywhere outside of the movies, but then through the mist on a bus window one snowy December day, she sees a man that she knows instantly is the one. Their eyes meet, there's a moment of pure magic, and then her bus drives away. Certain they're fated to find each other again, Laurie spends a year scanning every bus stop and cafe in London, hoping for another glimpse of what she trusts is true love, which then she doesn't find them. Not when it matters, anyway. Instead, they reunite at a Christmas party where her best friend Sarah giddily introduces her new boyfriend, the man from the bus, to Laurie. So it follows 10 years of this relationship, friendship, breakups. It is so good. and it made me sob. There's something about Josie Silver that can rip you right open. That is just so lovely. All right, so after all of that, now let's dive into my little bit of a Christmas TBR. So I have 5 physical books here that I'm going to talk about. And then I have one on the way to me, and then I have a few Kindle ones that I want to also think about getting myself for Christmas this year to read. It's a lot more than I had planned last year, but I'm excited about them all. This one is a indie published book of a girl that I follow on Instagram, and I've seen this book all over the Instagrams. A lot of people are getting it and reading it and loving it. So I was like, why not give it a try? Because it's very small, it's a little novella, but it is A Very Perry Christmas by Marie Landry. I am so excited about this book because not only is it really small and probably able to be read in like a few hours, it just sounds incredible. So Gwen's Christmas with the Perrys is turning into a holiday to remember for all the wrong reasons. When Gwen's boyfriend Evan invites her to spend Christmas with his family, she pictures a perfect Hallmark holiday scene, complete with all the happy sides and swoons. But between Evan's older brother, who schedules the family's every move, his sister, who's never met a mirror she didn't like, and the amorous newlyweds who flaunt their sexcapades, Gwen finds herself dodging the Perrys like it's her job. The more Evan's family bring their own brand of chaos to Christmas, the more Gwen wonders if she's in over her head and if the Christmas of her dreams is going to turn into a nightmare. So it just sounds like a romp of a Christmassy time, and I'm very excited to get to it. The next one is a book released by HarperCollins. It was released in October, but I have an arc of it, and I believe it's pitched as perfect for fans of One Day in December and Love Actually. And as you know, I just talked about One Day in December. Love Actually is my favorite Christmas movie besides The Holiday, but that is All About Us by Tom Ellen. So it doesn't really have a cover of this arc. It's a beautiful cover. It's a quote from the book. It's, "If you could turn back the clock, would you choose a different life?" It's a second chance type of romance where this man, in the throes of his kind of rocky relationship, gets a second chance. He goes back to 2005, the day he first kissed his girlfriend, leaving his best friend behind. So it's like his second chance at the biggest decision of his life, which is so fun, and I'm very excited to get to this. And then I have these 3 romances that I picked up from Indigo. This one is by Jenny Bayless. This is the 12 Dates of Christmas. This sounds so fun, and I'm so excited to get to it. It is about Kate Turner, who is ready to say bah humbug to all her relationships. The sleepy town of Blacksford, England isn't exactly brimming with prospects, and anyway, Kate's found fulfillment in her career as a designer and in her delicious side job baking for her old friend Matt's neighborhood cafe. But then her best friend signs her up for a dating agency that promises to help singles find love before the holidays. 23 days until Christmas. 12 dates with 12 different men. The odds must finally be in her favor, right? Which I think is going to be an incredibly funny romp. I'm just imagining all the disastrous dates. It's gonna be great. And then I have one that a few of my friends have kind of gone, ooh. You'll have to let us know how you feel about that one, because not a lot of people really like this lady's work, which is interesting because this is everything that I want in a book. But that is Royal Holiday by Jasmine Guillory, and I'm so excited about this because it deals with like royalty, Europe, and Christmas. How could you not love that, right? It has Vivian Forrest, who has been out of the country a grand total of 1 time, so when she gets the chance to tag along on her daughter Maddie's work trip to England to style a royal family member, she cannot refuse. She's excited to spend the holidays taking in the magnificent British sights, but what she doesn't expect is to become instantly attracted to a certain private secretary, his charming accent and his unyielding formality. It has a ticking timer because they're on a trip, right? So it also has like a New Year's Day deadline. I cannot wait to see what I think about it. The next one is In a Holidays by Christina Lauren, which I'm intrigued by. I like Christina Lauren's work. I absolutely adore The Unhoneymooners, but I didn't really love another one of their books that I read, Half Night Stand. One of them, I can't really remember, but this one specifically deals with like a Groundhog style day of narrative, and I don't think I like that very much, but we'll find out. It is the most wonderful time of the year, but not for Malin Jones. She's living with her parents, hates her going nowhere job, and has just made a romantic error of epic proportions. But perhaps worst of all, this is the last Christmas May will ever be at her favorite place in the world, the snowy Utah cabin where she and her family have spent the holidays every year since she was born. Mentally melting down as she drives away from the cabin for the final time, May throws out what she thinks is a simple plea to the universe. Please, show me what will make me happy. The next thing she knows, tires screech and metal collides, everything going black. But when May gasps awake, she's on an airplane bound for Utah, where she begins the same holiday all over again. So apparently it is jam-packed with Christmas humor. I'm hoping that it's kind of funny and very Christmassy. I'm assuming from the cover it's going to deliver in some type of way. Alright, so let's talk through the Kindle books and then I will let you guys go because I know this video has probably been a little bit of a long one. The first one is Most Wonderful by Bryce Oakley. So it is a queer romance between Amelia Martin, who thinks Christmas and holidays are a waste of time, and we have Cody Nowak, who loves every holiday tradition, but baking at her uncle's shop is one of the best. The next one that I have on my list here is called I'll Be Home for Christmas by Beverly Jenkins. And it just sounds like a great little novella. 3 years ago, Broadway star Dina Caldwell and celebrity chef Morgan Caldwell were passionately in love. Now, America's one-time favorite couple are about to be reunited in Morgan's Detroit hometown for the holidays. Is this the season for forgiving and forgetting? With sizzling kisses under the mistletoe, Morgan vows to make this a Christmas Dina will never forget. The next one is Noel the First by Nicole Falls. I know really nothing about these books. I just saw them and was like, yeah, this sounds amazing. This is also another Christmas novella. It is 80 pages. Despite sharing a birthday with the holiday, Christmas just wasn't Noel's thing. As a kid, she had been in love with the holiday, but adult Noel just saw it as another day to get through. Jay has moved back home after a breakup and is looking to reconnect with his childhood bestie. Cooking up a scheme to get her in the holiday spirit with her sisters, he is determined to bring back the old Noel. This next one is 2 holiday romances. Yes, so it is by Farah Rochon. Whole Christmassy anthology is Christmas Kisses, a holiday romance collection, and it includes, I believe, Tuscan Nights and Second Chance Christmas. We have one more, which is Under the Mistletoe by Everly James. This is another queer romance, and so it is between Samantha Evans, popular lesbian romance author, has writer's block, and a book due by New Year's Eve. When she signs up for a writing retreat in an attempt to overcome her lack of creativity, she expects a single occupancy cabin and plenty of silence for crafting her new book. What she doesn't expect is a roommate. A gorgeous woman roommate. Gia Torres is an aspiring novelist eager to break into the publishing world and leave her horrible day job as a barista behind, so she travels to a Colorado retreat to finish her very first novel, not expecting to find beautiful Samantha waiting for her there. The only problem, the two women hate each other. How will they overcome their first impressions and let Christmas sparks fly? Most of those are person of color romances because I found when I was looking for Christmassy romances and Christmassy books, everything that was advertised was very, very white, which is not good. Even if you look at this pile of books I have here, only one of them, The Royal Holiday, is a person of color romance. And all of them are also very straight. So I was like, where's my gay romance? I want my gay romances. So I went on a mission to find them. And so I did. And if you guys want me to make a video where I also talk through other recommendations of even more holiday romances, I definitely can do that. I'm also going to leave in the description bar down below a few links that I found to Goodreads shelves and blogs that talk through a lot of these holiday romances that are LGBTQ+, as well as person of color. I also tried to find specifically Asian representation as well as Indigenous representation. I couldn't find it. So if you guys have any recommendations on those 2 lines, please leave them down below. I would love to know. We have reached the end of this video. I really hope you enjoyed, and if you watched all the way to the end, if you watched all the way to this point, leave a Christmas tree emoji down below for me. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. You know it really helps us creators out on this platform. Please, please do. And I will catch you in another video soon. Stay kind and keep on reading.